My thesis, which I have said publicly, and it is now coming true for over 6 months, is they will default on the world reserve status. They're going to. Here's how it plays out. So, you want to bring back manufacturing. You know you can't do it with Triffin's dilemma being the world reserve currency. So what do? Well, the first thing that you do is you devalue the dollar massively. How do you devalue the dollar? You revalue gold. If you listen to my interview with Judy, and I say to her, Judy, gold is held in the revaluation account. Will it be revalued? Absolutely, she says. There's a man who talks about this a lot. There are several people who talk about it. In fact, the Federal Reserve just wrote a paper on it last month. Gold revaluation, a theory. Should we do it? James Rickards is a man many of you may know. James has been employed by the Pentagon to simulate financial war games. James Rickards says $24,000 is their number they're going to revalue it to. Crazy, right? Mike Maloney says 10,000. Mike gets there by dividing M1, money supply, into gold. James does it by M2. Let's pretend James is right for 1 minute and see what it does. Every $4,000 increase in the price of gold would give the Treasury General account $1 trillion free and clear. It's an accounting gimmick, mind you. If it went to 24,000, the Treasury would issue gold certificates to the Federal Reserve. And they then hold those gold certificates as collateral against the gold. They don't get to keep the gold no matter what. The gold belongs to the American people, but they are owed the money, the fiat value of it, right? The Federal Reserve pushes a button and creates money out of thin air. This is exactly what President Roosevelt did. Gives it to the Treasury, $6 trillion to start to pay down the debt. The dollar is devalued by 60% overnight. Ooh, interesting. What would happen if you had a massively devalued dollar? It might be easier to sell your manufacturing across the globe, wouldn't it? How do you get your manufacturing back at interest rates that will go higher and higher and higher as we get more and more and more into debt, right? How? I got an idea. You peg gold to the back end of the Treasury market with zero coupon, zero interest. You bring back your manufacturing at no borrowing costs. Yes, you have to deliver the gold in 20 years. Zero borrowing costs. You bring it all back in a massively devalued dollar, and you begin to grow your way out of this problem. But how does the government operate then? Oh, that's right. We create something called the Genius Act. And every single dollar that is sent around the globe, all over the place, will be backed by U.S. Treasuries. How do you like that for a good idea? And the proceeds, the interest that is added to between the Treasury and the issuance of the stablecoin, the issuer will take it and buy more Treasuries. And then they'll buy more gold and more Bitcoin, which will continue to devalue the dollar and push interest rates down. Now, the byproduct of this, you can see President Trump get on stage and say something like this. Being the world reserve currency has been a wonderful experience. It's come to an end. It has given us low interest rates, high asset prices, and cheap goods. But it's no longer something beneficial to this country. We need to bring back our manufacturing for our children and our grandchildren. And it's going to be painful. It's the Shawshank Redemption when Andy Dufresne crawled through that tube. That wasn't fun, but he got to the other end. Went like that, right, in the rain and wiped off all the crap. Well, we have to crawl through the tube. I could see him saying we will be starting universal basic income right now for the next 24 months. And at that time, we will have reshored all of our manufacturing, and once again, we can be the leaders, not only of movies in Hollywood and intellectual property, IT in California, and financial assets on Wall Street. We will now make things again. We will lead the world in manufacturing. We will grow our way out of this problem. My mentor, Richard Russell, used to say the Fed has two choices but to inflate or die, inflate or default. This is option 3. You destroy the dollar to support the bond market, to bring back manufacturing, you peg it to gold, you have this stupid thing called the Genius Act that gives artificial demand for a treasury which is dying, which holds up, gives the government the ability to operate until we bring back manufacturing and grow our way out of it. Now, the people who don't have assets are dead because things are going to get very expensive. They will use universal basic income. This is why you see the big money buying gold and silver and assets. Assets in this environment, in inflation, will do very well. Assets will kill it. Saving in dollars won't. The dollar is down 11% so far this year, but go back to that slide. last thing I'll say, and then I'll take questions, and this is a trend that's been going on forever. My father said to me, you know, your mom and I got married in 1963, Andy, when I graduated college, and my first job out of college was with Helene Curtis, a cosmetic company. And I got paid $6,000 a year, and your mom and I lived comfortably. I said, no way. I Googled it. Average salary in 63 was $10,000. First job out of college, great. How the hell does anyone live for a year, 2 people, on $6,000? Well, this is what happens when the dollar is insidiously devalued. We're at that point where it's not slowly devaluing anymore. It is exponentially devaluing. When we see $1 trillion worth of additional debt added every 100 days, you save in dollars, you're in trouble. You own assets, you got a chance. And that is why you buy gold. Silver, on the other hand, one last piece, it is used by the military-industrial complex to create high-tech weapons. This is why there are 8 Western banks, 8, that have held the largest concentrated short position on the COMEX market, meaning they step on it by selling it. They have so much money, they just keep selling and selling and selling, and they overwhelm the market, piss everyone off, and they all go somewhere else, because you need it to make high-tech weapons in order to sell them all around the world. Remember when we were warned about the military-industrial complex? They make weapons that need copious amounts of silver. It is not the price they're worried about, because it's 500 ounces in a missile that costs $15 million. They don't care. It's the fact that if people understand how valuable it is, and now they've given up on that by reclassifying it critical. But a company like BlackRock, which is the primary custodian of SLV, the world's largest silver trust, along with JP Morgan, who paid a $920 million fine to the Justice Department, the largest fine ever issued for manipulating silver, they're the custodians, yet they're still allowed to be the custodian. BlackRock also owns the majority of all the military manufacturers who are creating the weapons, needing silver, in order to sell them all around the world, create war, blow up Syria, blow up Ukraine, and who gets the reconstruction projects? That's right, it's BlackRock. Do you see how this works? This is a game that worked forever, but now the countries in the global south, that used to be third world, India and China, good 1-2 punch there, are now very wise to what we are doing, and they're beating us at our own game by standing for delivery, meaning, last point, when you have a contract, whether it be in London or on the COMEX market in New York, there are 3 options. You can cash settle at maturity, meaning you pay the value. You can roll it forward to the next month, or you can stand for delivery. In my career, less than 1% of contracts ever stood for delivery, ever, less than 1. In the first 3 days of the September contract, 3 days, this is just the first 3 days, in gold, 2,160 contracts came up for settlement. Now, that means these people either need to roll it to the next delivery month, pay a little fee, and go out another month, cash settle, give me the cash, or stand for delivery. Remember, less than 1% ever stood. 100% on over 2 million ounces of gold, $4 billion stood for delivery. Everyone, give me the gold, give me the gold, give me the gold, give me the gold, give me the gold. Same thing with silver. Who's got this money in the United States that keeps doing this? Every single week since November, to about $200 billion that we know of. So I guess the bottom line is that if I leave you with anything, it is that the most important thing to do is own assets, and do not keep your money in dollars, or you're destined to have big problems. And I think it's assets that feed you, liabilities that eat you, and there is no bigger liability right now than the US dollar. So I will turn it over to Bob, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Too bad he's not passionate. Before we take questions, I would just want to ask you, could we talk about, we realize the reasons to get some money out of the paper. The big guys, the hedge funds and the central banks buy the real stuff, right? We don't want paper. Can you talk a little bit about the ratio of gold to silver and why we're leaning towards silver so much versus gold?
So this is the whole concept of the military-industrial complex. You go back 5,000 years and you see a gold to silver geologic ratio, we'll call that God's ratio of 16 to 1, where 16 ounces of silver are found in the Earth's crust to every 1 ounce of gold. for 5,000 years. Even when Sir Isaac Newton was figuring out the relationship gold to silver in the UK Mint a million years ago, it was 16 to 1. Now I have a friend named Keith Newmeyer. He is the CEO of First Majestic Silver, one of the biggest silver companies in the world, who tells me all the time, has been telling me for years, and now he says it publicly, that the geologic ratio is 7 to 1. Remember what I said about silver being found near the top? And of all of the silver mined last year, only 20% came from companies that mine silver. The rest is byproduct. Silver is disappearing, but the military-industrial complex needs to keep silver stepped on. The ratio right now in the ground is 7 to 1. For every 1 ounce of gold, they have 7 ounces of silver. It's disappearing. Yet man's ratio, the price, because of the manipulation, is at 88 to 1. So if all that were to happen was that it were to get anywhere near its geologic ratio, which over time it has to, you could argue that silver is 11 to 12 times undervalued geologically. And over time, when you have this kind of demand all of a sudden and it's reclassified as a critical mineral, those things will change. There are very few things where you could actually say, is it realistic to expect a 11-fold return? Yeah, I guess it is. When it's this far suppressed, it's the value of a generation because of the hubris and the stupidity of the West, who have been caught at their own game. And these countries around the world are using this leverage against us by standing for delivery, which never happened. And you cannot naked suppress things where at the end you have to find it to deliver and you have to cover if you don't have it. If it's disappearing, it is an existential threat to these players, and they are all running for the hills and covering their positions, because if you are short to this degree, when all the big money is saying, I want the real thing now, game's over, and expect the price to really take off. Don't know how high, don't know when, but in a world of probabilities, I would say there's a high probability that you ain't seen nothing yet in silver.